The Ragin Cajuns may actually have a shot in Coral Gables. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. I'm your host, Dave Schultz. Thanks for continuing to enjoy the channel and continuing to subscribe. We got some more subscribers yesterday. Fantastic. Over 250 subscribers. Doesn't seem like a whole lot compared to other channels, but the growth continues. So we do appreciate it here. We never look down on a growth, kind of slow and steady is what we got going here. But we're looking forward to it. We got 4 teams in the NCAA regionals. Coastal is hosting, so they're going to be favored to win theirs. It's going to be a little bit disappointing if you're Coastal Carolina and not come away with a regional victory. The other ones are tough. Cajuns going to Miami, going to Coral Gables to take on the Hurricanes. Troy is going to Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama, or in that regional anyways. And Southern Miss is in the Auburn regional. We will talk about them as we go. But I do want to talk about the Ragin Cajuns. Of course, I'm here in Lafayette, so they're the easiest ones to talk about. They may actually have a shot. It's really interesting. If the Cajuns can play, I don't even think they have to play perfectly. All right. They just can't let these, they got to pitch well. All right. Let's put it that way. They have to pitch well. They may not have to pitch extraordinarily, but they have to pitch well. Texas has, 5 guys in their lineup that have double digits in home runs. Miami has 6. But where the Cajuns have the advantage is in their pitching. All right. Now, each Texas and Miami may have their starters maybe better than the Cajun starter, or the closer, in Miami's case, may be better than what the Cajuns are putting out there. But I had Joe Zagacki on the Voice of the Hurricanes on my on Sports Chat today on 103.3 The Game, and he's basically telling me Miami has 1 pitcher. And like, that's it. They have Greg Zeal is their starting pitcher. He's 7-4 with a 4.61 ERA. Okay. But then Carlos Lacarica is, he's started like 1 game, but he's the next guy. And then you don't know what you're going to do with what he said. Alejandro, let me tell you, Lacarica doesn't have bad stats. He just hasn't pitched very much. But I thought that's who he said was the next guy. And he's got good numbers. He's 5-1 with a 3.92 ERA, but in 29 appearances, he's pitched 40 in the 3rd innings. He's made 1 start. He's the next guy up. So he may pitch well for a few innings, but he can't go more than that. And then you have what apparently was a local high school superstar that has now translated into the college realm, Alejandro Rosario, who is 4-6 with a 7.45 ERA. Now, to be fair, Jackson Nazu has like over a 6 ERA. So his numbers don't look all that good either, except batting average against, I think Nazu is like 255, whereas batting average against Rosario is 271. And he's got more hits than innings pitched. He does strike out more than 1 batter per inning. The strikeout to walk ratio is closer to 2-1 than it is 3-1. So if the Cajuns can somehow stay in these ball games, well, no, against Miami, they gotta. It's a little bit different. If they get to play Miami compared to Texas, where Texas doesn't have the bullpen, Texas has a couple of good starters and a really good lineup, but they don't have a bullpen. So they got to get to the bullpen. The thing with Miami is you got to get to the starters because you're not going to get to the bullpen, probably. In terms of Andrew Walters, a 4-0 with 11 saves. Batting average against 168. He's got 68 strikeouts in 41 and 2/3 inning pitched. He's walked 7 guys all year. So probably not looking good for a late inning comeback against Miami. But it is interesting. Texas has the starting pitching, but no bullpen. Miami has the bullpen, but very little starting pitching. And the Cajuns aren't going to see Miami until day 2 at the earliest. And so we'll see what happens. Miami or the Cajuns have a real shot at this. They just kind of have to play Ragin Cajuns baseball. They have a good lineup, and they have, I would call, solid pitching. I don't think anything is spectacular about the Cajuns pitching. Now, Blake Marshall was spectacular against Coastal Carolina, right? Not giving up a run, almost 150 pitches. He was spectacular in that case. JT Etheridge pitched very well. Nezu pitched well. Cooper Rawls pitched well, right? And so these guys pitched okay, right? I mean, Blake Marshall was spectacular, but nobody is sticking out. Nobody is that huge ace of the team for the Cajuns. Whereas, let's see if Nezu can go out there and Fluno can go 6 strong innings and see where they are at that point in time. So the Cajuns have more pitching depth than it appears that either Miami or Texas has. Now, in Miami's defense, their batting is pretty good. Yohandy Morales, 16 home runs, 61 RBIs, batting .405. All right. Again, you got, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys with double digits of home runs. And the 2 other guys have 7 and 6 home runs. So, they can hit it out too. So the Cajuns really need to kind of keep this, certainly under double digits. That's going to be an issue to try to overcome. But if they can, they kept Coastal to 4 runs in one day. They did lose to Coastal in the first game, 6-3. But on Saturday, they beat them 7-3 and 4-1. If you can have those kind of games, both against Miami and against Texas, you got a shot. Now, can't forget about Maine. Had a great story from Joe Zagacki talking about Maine would always come down to play Miami back in the Miami heydays of the 80s and the 90s. They've been to the World Series 7 years. So you can't really discount Maine, which I kind of am. So I apologize for that. So don't overlook the Maine Black Bears. They are tradition rich, although in this case they are the 4 seed. But don't overlook them. But nonetheless, we're talking about Texas, who the Cajuns have first, and then Miami, who, again, sorry, Maine, most likely will get them second. All right. So they have a shot. They actually have a legit shot. When you hear about a team that's got maybe 1 starter, yeesh. Whereas the Cajuns have at least 2 starters and then can manage to, put some innings together. So I think they have a shot. All right. When we get back, we'll talk about what Southern Miss is going to do in the Auburn Regional. But first, let me tell you a little bit about FanDuel. I used FanDuel. I'm not sure I was very victorious. We're waiting to find out as we speak. Maybe over now. I could look, I guess. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs because right now new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. There's no better bet, no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So let me see. I can check it right now, actually. I know it's late, but let me see here. No, I did not cover almost. I took the Heat 9. They lost by 11. They were getting blown out all game, and I was hoping for some garbage points at the end. So didn't quite do that one. I did. What did I bet? I could tell you I bet I took a flyer on the Heat to win it. Not a very big flyer, but I did take a flyer on the Heat to win it. I also bet on the Nuggets and the Florida Panthers. I parlayed those 2 teams together. And I bet on Matthew Tkachuk, to win a Conn Smythe MVP. That's what I did today. So over 1, I think it was all of $10 that I lost on tonight's game. So we're all set for the NBA Finals moving forward. All right. Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Southern Miss in the Auburn Regional. That includes, right, Southern Miss, Auburn, Samford, and now I got to look it up. Let's see. Auburn Regional. Oh, I forgot. Southern Miss. Oh, Penn. All right, Penn out of the Ivy League. So Auburn's getting Penn, and Southern Miss is taking Samford. We did have Scott Berry on. You probably saw it on Monday, and he was very generous with his time. He was hesitating whether to pitch Tanner Hall first, and he readily admits in the past he's always gone with his ace. Winning game 1, not going to worry about game 2. I'll worry about game 2 later on, taking the strategy out of such things. But he was hesitant at the time, so he wanted to maybe give it a thought that maybe we could get by with Tanner Hall not facing Samford, but he ends up and saving for Auburn, most likely. But he's going with Tanner Hall against Samford. And, Auburn's had a good year. Southern Miss has had a good year. Southern Miss, one of those teams that very well could have hosted, along with, Boston College. Campbell could have hosted. And so this is not the easiest of all regionals for Auburn, for that fact of the matter, right? Because there's going to be a good crowd. I know Auburn's going to be packed in there. Auburn fans will have it packed in there, but Southern Miss will have their contingent. If you're Southern, they're not going to Miami. There's a lot to be said about going to Miami. Still got to hop on a plane for the most part. But when you're Southern Miss, is it even 4 hours? Hattiesburg to Auburn, Alabama. Let's see how long a drive that is. It's actually 5 hours, almost 5 hours. So that's a little bit longer of a drive than I thought. But nonetheless, it is hopping into a car, and you don't have to hop into a plane. And so we'll see if Southern Miss can do it and get off to a good start against Samford. They certainly have a shot, and I don't think they're going to get intimidated by Auburn, right? They had LSU at home last year. They did lose, right? They had to beat LSU twice last year before going on to the Super Regional. So Southern Miss is very experienced. They have a good shot as well. Auburn's experienced as well. They don't have quite the team they had last year, but remember Auburn they won their regional and then went out west and won the Super Regional. They played in Omaha last year, and it's a great story. It was a lot of fun covering that when I was in Mobile because it kind of came out of nowhere. Like Auburn had this fantastic SEC tournament and then won the regional, and then they just wouldn't stop hitting. They just would not stop hitting. And so we'll see what Tanner Hall can do against Samford, and then can you manage to get a couple of more wins if you are Southern Miss? All right, let's come back. We'll take a timeout first, and then come back, and we'll see what the Trojans can do against in the Tuscaloosa region. All right. When we come back, we'll talk about that. All right. Again, thank you so much for helping to continue to grow Locked On Sunbelt. We are continuing to the numbers continue to improve. It's been we haven't done a lot of football. We did one yesterday where the TV schedules came out, and again, a lot of ESPN, a lot of Sunbelt football, not on just ESPN Plus, which we're all used to these days, but ESPN nationally, ESPNU, On the Deuce, and then of course they very well may have the Sunbelt Championship game on ABC, which would be spectacular. So that would be big for the conference. So we know there is interest in the conference, right? None of that. We don't have locked on for any of the one schools. So trying to cover as much as I can. I know, when you're in Mobile, you cover South Alabama. And when you're in Lafayette, you'll cover the Ragin Cajuns. But I do want to give love to everybody. And again, you can see it with the numbers. You can look at the videos. When you do Southern Miss, they watch. All right. They have that unique fan base. And so we do appreciate it. I'm presuming that more and more we get to football we'll get more likes and subscribers. And again, please, if you see it on YouTube, share it, comment. I will comment back. Try not to be overly sarcastic because you don't really get that on a YouTube comment. So I do appreciate it. Please also don't forget, we are wherever you get your audio podcasts: Amazon, iHeart, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get those. Just search Locked On Sunbelt, and you'll be able to find this. And if you don't have time to watch in the morning or at work, you can play it in the car on the phone while you're in traffic. All right. And usually these things are only 20 to 25 minutes. Maybe once in a while, I'll get up to 30 with the good interviews like Scott Berry. So again, thanks so much for tuning into Locked On Sunbelt. I am your host, Dave Schultz. Quickly, let's talk about the Troy Trojans. And they are led by All-American Shane Lewis, tied for third in the nation with 27 home runs, 76 runs batted in, like an OPS of 1175. And he's got to do some damage. All right. Troy came in. I think they came into to beat the Cajuns. Maybe it was at the end of February. Was I even here yet? It may have been just before I showed up. No. Let's see here. We are on Troy because they took 2 out of 3 from the Cajuns, I thought. Middle of April. Yeah, so I was actually here. They did take 2 out of 3. Cajuns salvaged the final game 2-1. But they have a shot too. All right. They got to get the hitting, though. They absolutely have to get the hitting. I tried to find out. I'm sure it was announced, but I did not see it. Who is going to get the starting nod for Troy? I did look that up, but I did not see it. I'm going to go with Grayson Stewart. I mean, they seem to be struggling pitching wise as well. So there seems to be a lot of options. Well, let's quickly see who pitched this past week. I guess we can do that quickly because that's where, that's who's going to get the start, one would think. Let's see here. Who started? Now, this was a crazy ball game, and they were down. They won 10-9, so I'm not sure. Grayson Stewart started 5 runs on 8 hits in 5 innings. And they did win that ball game, but they had to come from way behind to do it. Now they lost to Southern Miss in the winner's bracket circle. Let's see who got the start there. That was Oldham got the start. Or no, I'm sorry, that's Southern Miss. Logan Ross got the start. He gave up 6 runs on 9 base hits in 5 1/3 innings. And then I'm not sure. Troy does not want to remember this ball game. Then the next ball game, isn't that the one with a 10-run inning against App State? I think so. They were winning this ball game like 8-0. Is that right? 7-0. They're beating Troy. Troy's beating App State 7-0. App State scores 3 in the 4th, 10 in the 6th. All with 2 outs. They had 2 on and 2 outs, and they scored 10 runs. They could not get out of it. Now, Zach Fruit, who pitched in relief in the first game, he couldn't get out of the 4th, and maybe that was the problem. 3 runs, all earned, 5 hits, 3 2/3 innings. Kristen Osbury came in and finished off the 4th. And Brady Fuller started the 6th, and it did not go very well at all. Troy actually had, I think, the tying run on deck, or maybe it was coming up, and App State center fielder made a spectacular catch to prevent a rally in the 9th. They scored 2. So Troy has pitching issues, obviously, and they're going to have to slug their way to a tournament, to a regional championship. So we will see if they'll be able to do it. They had pitching struggles in a big way in Montgomery. So if they can, again, slug their way to it, where they lose a 14-10 ball game. They won a 10-9 ball game, and they lost 7-6. In fact, going back to that, they had a shot, if my memory serves, kind of watching it online. Didn't they have a shot against Southern Miss? Let me see this. They lost 7-6 to Southern Miss in the winner's bracket in the 9th inning. They scored 3 in the 8th to tie it up, but I think they had a shot in the 9th. I thought they had a shot in the 9th to do that. Let me see. Do we have any play-by-play? No, I don't have the play-by-play. All right. Whatever be the case. So whereas the Cajuns are going to have to pitch their way through and try to keep those high offenses down, Troy and Southern Miss is going to pitch their way through. Troy is probably going to have to slug their way through. So we shall see. And we know the same thing for Coastal Carolina. Coastal's going to have to come around and hit, right? I mean, Coastal Carolina averaging like 8 runs a ball game cannot, go into a slump now. We'll see if they can, bounce out of it. As we've heard from more than a couple of coaches, they are very accustomed to hitting in their stadium, and they're a different team in their stadium. So we wish all the Sun Belt teams well. I think they all have a shot. It'd be nice to see more than one make their way to a super regional. It would be hard pressed to say more than 2, but I think all the teams have a shot. All right, if Troy can find some pitching, all right, Southern Miss can hang with Auburn. If the Cajuns get a little bit of pitching, they can hang with Texas and Miami and Maine for that fact of the matter. And Coastal can hit with anybody. So we shall see. All right, everybody, have a fantastic weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Sun Belt, your team every day. We'll be back on Monday to see where we stand and who advances out of the NCAA baseball regionals. Once again, I'm your host, Dave Schultz, and you've been watching and listening to Locked On Sun Belt, your team every day.